Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are wrestling with something that many sources call the most dangerous dilemma of leadership.
hmm
You know the situation. If you manage people, you've almost certainly encountered this person, the star,
Yeah.
your absolute highest performer, the one closing the massive deals, fixing those impossible legacy bugs. Everyone else just throws their hands up.
Right. They deliver results, irrefutable, shiny results that, make the quarterly reports look amazing.
Absolutely. They are, without question, your organizational rock star.
And it's always a but, isn't there? There's this huge, existential asterisk attached to that performance.
Exactly. The problem isn't their output. It's never the output. The problem is their behavior.
That's it. They might be arrogant. Maybe they undermine colleagues constantly in meetings.
Or refuse to share knowledge, right?
Mhm.
Hoarding it to make themselves indispensable.
Yeah, and they leave this trail, like a wake of demotivation, exhaustion, maybe even tears behind them.
Incredible. On their individual KPIs, their metrics look fantastic,
Mhm.
but they extinguish the light, the energy, the psychological safety for everyone else around them.
Hmm.
So this person is somehow both your best player and, without a doubt, your worst systemic problem.
The source material calls it talento toxic talent.
Exactly.
And it's immediately clear this isn't something you can just, study forever.
No time for that.
Right. The deep dive confirms ignoring this, that's not a strategy. It's literally a ticking time bomb just waiting to destroy your culture.
And trying to manage it badly. Through appeasement or just denying it's happening.
That's cultural suicide. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
And it happens surprisingly fast.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty critical. We need a shortcut through this mess. We're extracting the strategies that really separate two types of leaders facing this exact dilemma.
The doomed one and the successful one.
Exactly. The short-sighted, ultimately doomed hero leader and the successful, systematic elite leader. We need the practical playbook.
Because the decision you make here, it's fundamental. Are you protecting the star? Or are you protecting the whole system, the team?
And that decision defines not just your team's future results, but really your character as a leader.
Okay, let's dig in. Let's unpack this dangerous calculation and see where the hero leader always goes wrong first. Right, let's start with the leader who, often with good intentions actually, ends up causing the most damage. The leader hero, the hero leader.
They're usually laser-focused on hitting those immediate short-term results.
Driven by their own goals, maybe, or just fear of a bad quarter.
Often, yeah. And crucially, they are absolutely terrified of the gap, the operational hole that losing their star performer would create.
So they see the great output and they just rationalize the awful behavior, convince themselves it's a necessary evil.
They walk right into what the source calls a mortal trap. It's this cognitive dissonance, right? They do a calculation.
They're actually those numbers.
Exactly. I need those numbers to hit my target. It feels pragmatic, logical in the moment.
But the analysis is clear. Completely clear. The long-term cost of that calculation is always financially and culturally devastating. Always.
So the hero leader has to build this, justification system to look past the damage happening every single day.
It's elaborate, yeah. We really need to spend some time on these flawed justifications because recognizing them, in ourselves or maybe in our own bosses, that's the first step towards becoming that elite leader.
Okay, so the sources point to three main pillars, three ways the hero leader justifies inaction.
The first one is sort of the foundation for everything else. It's the justification by results.
The classic.
The hero leader's mantra, right? They repeat it to themselves, whisper it to HR maybe. Yes, but they deliver results.
So they're prioritizing the output, the numbers over the how.
Totally. Over the conduct, the team impact, the actual character they display day to day. The star's amazing numbers become this shield. Almost structurally, it blocks any kind of accountability.
I've seen that so many times. Leaders under pressure, they just point to the star's numbers, deflects from the cultural dumpster fire.
It's the easiest way out, and it's so deceptive. Imagine a huge, complex project gets done. The toxic star pushed it over the line, hits the deadline, gets praised.
Looks great on paper.
Right. What the hero leader doesn't track is the fallout. The 3 exhausted people who quit next month because of the abuse, the 2 teams who couldn't integrate their work properly because the star hoarded info until the last second.
The innovation that died because someone's idea got shot down publicly.
Precisely. Maybe $50,000 lost in future potential because a junior colleague got ridiculed into silence. The hero leader sees the project KPI. They don't see the massive collateral damage invoice that's coming due later.
So by letting results dictate the culture.
They guarantee the culture will eventually betray the results. It's inevitable.
And that distinction, the what over the how,
Oh,
that's the moment the leader slips into the second pillar of failure, which sounds actively destructive.
oh, it is. Because the second you value output over ethics, over basic decency, you're signaling that the rules are flexible, conditional.
Which leads directly to,
The creation of special rules. The hero leader starts letting the toxic talent get away with things. Open violations.
like what? Give us examples.
Arriving late constantly, no consequences. Openly ignoring processes everyone else has to follow meticulously. Checklists, reporting, whatever.
Or just mistreating colleagues. Maybe being openly contemptuous in meetings.
Absolutely. Public displays of contempt,
Yes.
belittling people, and the rest of the team. They're not stupid. They see every single instance of that special treatment.
Yeah, they're watching closely. What does that do to the people who are following the rules, try and do the right thing?
It sends the single most lethal message a leader can possibly send.
Which is,
That a system of castes now exists. It signals loud and clear the rules do not apply to the favorites. And that just fractures the basic contract of fairness.
wow.
Think about it. The core currency of a healthy, high-performing team is equal standards. If the leader lets the genius skip the check-in process because they're too busy, everyone else who does the check-in realizes their compliance means nothing. It's devalued.
The respect for the leader must just plummet.
It collapses. And worse, their commitment to the company's stated values. Poof, gone. The hero leader is essentially funding the star's arrogance with the team's morale, paying for bad behavior with good people's engagement.
Okay, so eventually the hero leader has to be getting some feedback, right? Formal complaints, maybe just whispers, grumbling. Team morale is low, people are complaining about the star.
Usually, yes, it starts to surface.
But the hero leader, still desperate to keep those numbers, tries to handle it with the third justification, which sounds like just giving up.
It's a total abdication of leadership duty. This is the failed isolation. The leader realizes, okay, the star's behavior is damaging, so they try to contain it.
Like, put them in a corner office, special projects away from everyone.
Exactly. Draw an invisible barrier around the star. Then they go to the rest of the team, the good ones, the collaborators, the ethical folks, and they try to minimize it.
Oh, I know where this is going, you say.
The incredibly common but devastating things, look, just ignore them. They're just like that. Or that's just John being John, the genius. Or even just work around them. Focus on your job.
Ugh. It sounds like instant relief for the leader, though, doesn't it? For a second. Phew! Acknowledged the problem, kept my star, avoided that horrible confrontation.
That fleeting relief, that is the trap. Because what the leader is actually doing is forcing the functional majority of the team to absorb the emotional and psychological cost of one person's dysfunction.
They're making the victims manage the perpetrator.
Precisely. Asking the people doing their jobs right respectfully, collaboratively, to become emotional shock absorbers.
Yeah.
And that is completely unsustainable. It's an enormous burden.
It leads to burnout, resentment.
Exhaustion, burnout, cynicism, you name it. The hero leader sees the star's behavior as this isolated incident, but it's not. It's like a persistent low-grade infection. It requires constant energy from the healthy parts of the system just to keep things from falling apart.
Okay, that sets up this next part perfectly. We're moving from the hero leader's flawed actions to the inevitable results. This constant tolerance, this desperate math. It leads to what the source calls the silent erosion of everything that matters.
It's not a big bang, not a sudden scandal.
No headlines here. It's slow, steady, like bleeding out, organizationally speaking. Health, potential, just draining away.
That's such a crucial distinction. The hero leader was trying to prevent a visible loss, the star's numbers, but the unintended consequence, which is way more damaging, is invisible at first.
Which is?
Losing the good people, the high-integrity performers. The sources show two main predictable outcomes from tolerating toxicity.
Let's hit the first one, the actual physical departure of your best people.
This is the attrition of good talent. Your best employees, the ones who value collaboration, who hold themselves accountable, who operate with integrity, who actively support their peers. These folks are the first ones out the door.
Because they can be, they have options.
Exactly. They don't have to put up with dysfunction. They won't.
And the key thing here, the deep truth, is why they leave. It's not about the money usually or the vacation policy.
No. They don't leave because the work is too hard. They leave because the culture, actively enabled by the hero leader, openly tolerates abuse, arrogance, disrespect if you're a protected high performer.
So when a decent, collaborative employee sees that hostile genius get a pass again and again.
They internalize the organization's real values, not the ones on the wall plaque. The implicit statement is, we value measurable arrogance over unmeasurable integrity.
Wow, that's stark.
And the moment that message lands, that high-integrity person starts polishing their resume, updating LinkedIn. They vote with their feet. They look for a place where good work and good behavior are both valued.
And this creates a serious vacuum, right? You lose the bridge builders, the morale sustainers.
A huge talent vacuum. You're left with people who either can't leave easily, or worse, people who've started to internalize the toxic rules. They see the star being protected and think, maybe I need to be less helpful, more guarded. Maybe that's how you get ahead here.
Which transitions perfectly to the second major consequence, the impact on the people who stay.
Yes, the utterly predictable decline in productivity. Even if people don't quit right away, they stop performing at their best, often without even consciously deciding to.
Why? What's happening there?
It's stress and demotivation, and those things are incredibly contagious in a workplace culture. Team members start spending precious emotional energy just navigating the toxic person's moods.
Or building defenses, like avoiding sabotage.
Exactly. Crafting defensive emails, hoarding information because they're afraid the star will steal credit or ridicule their ideas. They stop focusing on the actual job.
And start focusing on survival, self-preservation.
Precisely. Their cognitive bandwidth gets eaten up by managing cultural friction. Think about it. If, say, 30% of a team member's mental effort every day is spent just on conflict avoidance or stress management related to that one toxic employee.
That's 30% not going into innovation or collaboration or quality work.
Right. The total output of the team is the combined net production of everyone. So if one toxic genius bumps their personal metric by, say, 5 points, but they simultaneously cause 7 other people to drop their metrics by 2 points each because of the friction and stress they create.
Do the math. 5 up, 14 down.
The team has taken a net loss of 9 points. Overall productivity has gone down demonstrably.
It's amazing that the hero leader doesn't see this or refuses to see it.
Because they're fixated on that one column in the spreadsheet, the star's individual KPI. They are completely blind to the systemic friction they're actively enabling.
So trying to protect one star's output.
They end up poisoning the entire team's environment, making the whole operation less efficient, less creative, and definitely less resilient. It's a terrible trade-off.
Okay, this brings us finally to the solution, the antidote to the hero leader. Enter the leader, the elite leader. This leader operates from a totally different place, a foundational, non-negotiable truth that just flips the hero leader's flawed calculus right on its head.
The core truth is actually quite simple. The elite leader understands team culture is the organization's immune system.
And toxic talent
is a virus. You don't negotiate with the virus, you don't appease it, you either eliminate it or you ensure the system effectively contains it. You cannot let a systemic threat run wild just because it performs one useful function sometimes.
So the guiding principle is crystal clear. Protecting the health of the whole system
is always more important and strategically smarter than protecting the temporary performance of one single damaged part.
And the elite leader's approach isn't about being harsh or aggressive. It's described as surgical.
Surgical, precise, and systematic. That systematic part is absolutely key. The elite leader doesn't just react emotionally. They don't go with their gut feeling. They deploy a structured strategy. And the deep dive sources lay out 4 key competencies that really define this surgical approach. Each one is designed to either rehabilitate the star, give them a real chance to change, or provide objective, undeniable data for their eventual removal, if necessary. All right, competency number 1. It's all about setting the ground rules, laying out the field of play clearly.
Before you can enforce standards.
You have to make damn sure those standards are crystal clear and actionable. This is the prerequisite. You cannot justly or even legally sanction behavior that hasn't been explicitly and visibly prohibited to everyone on the team.
So we're talking about moving beyond those fuzzy company values on the posters, right? Like integrity or respect or excellence. They sound nice, but try having a disciplinary chat based on you lacked excellence.
Exactly. Too abstract, too subjective. The concrete action here is establishing and then rigorously, visibly communicating the non-negotiable behaviors.
Non-negotiable behaviors.
And these must be defined as concrete actions, things you can see or hear. not abstract values. The elite leader knows that fuzzy language just gives the toxic person wiggle room. They can argue interpretations forever. I wasn't being rude, I was just being direct.
Okay, so give me an example. How does an elite leader turn a value like respect into a concrete, non-negotiable behavior?
They make it behavioral, measurable. So instead of just saying, we value respect, the non-negotiable rule becomes something like, here, we do not interrupt colleagues when they are speaking during a scheduled meeting. Full stop.
Very specific.
Or say you want to target information hoarding. The rule isn't be collaborative. It's here, we share essential project knowledge openly via the central shared drive within 24 hours of creation. We do not hoard information to maintain individual leverage.
Or feedback.
Right. Instead of be constructive, it's here, we deliver constructive feedback privately. One-on-one, we do not deliver destructive criticism publicly in team settings. See? It removes the ambiguity.
Totally. So now, when the toxic talent interrupts someone,
the conversation shifts instantly. It's no longer a subjective argument about their character, you have a bad attitude. It becomes an objective rule violation check. You interrupted Sandra 3 times. That violates the non-negotiable communication standard we all agreed to on January 1st. This cannot happen again.
that reframing is incredibly powerful. It makes the leader an enforcer of clear, agreed-upon standards, not some kind of personality judge.
It provides the objective framework you absolutely need. And crucially, the elite leader doesn't just write these down. They ensure this list is communicated repeatedly, maybe even signed off on, integrated into onboarding and regular training.
So the rules become culturally embedded and legally defensible.
Exactly. Now, if the star continues to violate these specific behavioral terms, they're not failing some kind of personality test. They are clearly breaching an explicit standard of conduct for this team.
Okay, so the rules are clear, non-negotiable, behavioral. Competency 1 is done. Now, the elite leader moves from policy into practice, changing the star's actual work.
Right. Strategically changing their operational environment to basically force the issue. The goal now is to correct the damaging behavior, not by lecturing, but by designing their work so that collaboration becomes unavoidable. Mandatory, even.
Okay, how? Because the hero leader loved giving the star those solo, glorious projects, right? Made the star look indispensable.
Exactly. The hero leader fed the beast. Those solo missions generated impressive individual metrics, which reinforced the star's power and allowed them to stay isolated, avoid accountability for friction, and hide the damage they caused.
So the elite leader cuts off the supply of solo glory missions.
Precisely. The concrete action is what the sources call the forced collaboration strategy. The individual is immediately strategically integrated into projects where success is obligatorily dependent on effective, respectful interaction with other specific team members.
Okay, wait. This isn't just putting them on a team and hoping for the best.
No. It's structuring the project tasks, the workflow, the dependencies, so that the star literally cannot complete their critical phase until, say, Sarah delivers her prerequisite component based on shared data, and Sarah can't finish hers until the star provides clear input. They are technically locked together.
But hold on, isn't there a big risk here? What if the star digs in their heels, refuses to cooperate, sabotages the project just to prove they don't need anyone? Isn't that risking a major failure? Basically proving the hero leader's fear was right all along.
That's an excellent, critical question. It's the obvious risk. The elite leader anticipates and mitigates this risk in a couple of key ways. First, they structure these collaborative dependencies in smaller chunks, maybe short sprints, clear milestones. This limits the potential blast radius if things go completely sideways. You don't bet the whole farm on the first attempt.
Okay, smaller bets. Makes sense. What's the second mitigation?
Second, and this is crucial, the elite leader assigns a specific, highly trusted project manager or maybe a senior collaborator whose job includes meticulously tracking behavioral inputs, not just the task outputs.
So you're tracking the how again, but within the project structure.
Exactly. So if the project does struggle or fail, the postmortem, the data trail, doesn't just say task X delayed, it clearly shows why. The failure is now visibly, undeniably linked directly to the toxic talent's refusal to share data on time, or their public mockery of a coworker's contribution in the stand-up, or their attempt to steamroll the agreed process. It's not blamed on their lack of technical skill.
It completely removes that shield of I'm a genius, the process is dumb.
Gone. You force the individual into a corner. They have to either adapt their corrosive behavior to succeed, which is the ideal outcome, right? Rehabilitation, or
Or they clearly, publicly, demonstrably expose their total inability to function within a collaborative, interdependent setting.
which makes the next step, that potentially inevitable final decision, much, much cleaner. They've run out of places to hide their dysfunction.
Right. So the rules are set. The behavior is now being forced into the open through mandatory collaboration. The elite leader knows that a direct conversation, a confrontation, is now unavoidable. But it has to be incredibly precise.
No winging it.
Absolutely not. They understand. Having this structured, difficult conversation now is the only way to prevent that cultural implosion later. And this conversation demands an absolute commitment to observable facts. No opinions, no hearsay.
And this is exactly where the hero leader usually falls apart, isn't it? They finally get the courage, walk into the room and say something vague like, your attitude needs to improve, or people are saying you're rude.
Yep. And what happens immediately?
The toxic star goes on the defensive. What attitude? I'm hitting my numbers. Who's complaining? This sounds like a witch hunt. Nailed it. Classic failure mode. The hero leader uses subjective grievances, which are instantly easy to argue against or dismiss. The elite leader, however, comes prepared. They execute a private, highly structured conversation using a specific tactical model, the Situation Behavior Impact, SBI model,
Yeah.
and they have to meticulously document the facts before the meeting. No relying on memory, and absolutely avoid subjective, generalized, or judgmental language.
Okay, let's really break this down. Can you walk us through how the hero leader messes it up versus how the elite leader uses SBI effectively? Make it concrete.
Sure. Let's imagine the hero leader trying the conversation. They might say, look, I need you to be nicer, okay? Your attitude. It's been pretty terrible in the last few meetings, and frankly, some people are getting upset. You just need to fix it.
Weak, vague, open to interpretation.
Totally. And the star immediately replies, I have no idea what you mean by terrible attitude. I'm just focused on getting results. Tell me specifically who is complaining so I can address their performance issues. Boom. Conversation completely derailed. It's now a debate about personality and hearsay.
Okay, now, same scenario, but the elite leader walks in armed with SBI. How does it sound?
Much different. They start with the situation, S, grounding it in an objective, undeniable time and place. Okay, we need to talk about the 10 a.m. team synchronization meeting this morning, specifically the discussion regarding the Q4 rollout plan.
Can't argue with that. It happened. Then the observable behavior, B. No interpretation, just facts.
Exactly, describing precisely what was seen or heard. When Sandra was presenting her proposal for the marketing pivot, I observed that you interrupted her 3 separate times before she finished her points. On the 3rd interruption, the exact words you used were that her proposal made no sense to any serious engineer on this project.
Wow. Citing specific actions, specific quotes, no room for denial there.
Very little. It's based on direct observation or documented reports. Then, finally, the crucial step, the impact. Connecting that specific behavior, that rule violation, back to the team's or organization's performance, and explicitly separating it from the star's individual metrics.
How does that sound?
The leader finishes by clearly explaining the systemic cost. The immediate impact of those interruptions was twofold. First, Sandra visibly shut down and stopped participating for the remainder of the discussion. Second, I noticed 3 other senior team members who clearly had input ready decided to hold back their feedback after your comment. This created tension that stalled the creative flow we needed, delaying our decision on that critical path item by about 45 minutes. I need you to understand clearly, this specific behavior is a direct violation of our non-negotiable rule about respectful collaboration, which we discussed on January 1st. It is absolutely unacceptable in this team, regardless of how strong your individual code contributions were this week. If this behavior pattern recurs, there will be formal disciplinary consequences, starting with specific consequences.
That is night and day. The conversation is now squarely focused on operational failure, stemming directly from a specific observed rule violation. It's not about personality anymore.
Exactly. It's objective, behavioral, and linked to consequences for the team, not just the individual's feelings. It's much harder to argue against facts and documented impact.
Okay, so the first 3 competencies are really about direct intervention. Defining rules, changing the work environment, having that tough SBI conversation. This 4th one feels different. It's about building something systemic, creating protection for the future.
That's right. The hero leader's fatal flaw was only seeing the star's individual KPIs, right? They were blind to the systemic damage. The elite leader knows they have to find a way to measure that damage the hero leader ignored. make the invisible cost visible.
How do you measure cultural damage? That sounds tricky.
This is where the genius of the elite leader's long-term strategy comes in. It's about institutionalizing the focus on the how. The concrete action here is implementing, or maybe just significantly refining, performance evaluation mechanisms. Most notably, things like the 360-degree feedback system.
360s,
What?
where peers, reports, and managers all give feedback.
Exactly. But here's the critical twist. It's not just doing 360s, it's about a specific methodological shift in how the metrics within that system are weighted and defined.
Okay, how do the metrics change the game?
They fundamentally shift the weighting. A traditional system, maybe driven by a hero leader, might weigh individual output like sales volume or lines of code at, say, 80% of the total performance score, and teamwork or collaboration might be a soft, fuzzy 20%.
Right, easy to max out the 80% and ignore the 20%.
Yeah, precisely. The elite leader system flips that, or at least balances it dramatically. It ensures that the metrics like demonstrated collaboration, effective knowledge sharing, mentorship impact on junior staff, contribution to positive team climate, these things must be weighted as importantly as, or in some cultures, even more importantly than the raw individual output results.
So under this system,
Yeah.
if I'm absolutely crushing my personal revenue targets, hitting 100%, but my 360 feedback from my peers consistently shows a collaboration score of like 5% because I'm notoriously difficult and undermine everyone.
The system instantly flags you, not as a star, but as a net liability.
Why?
That's the power. The system now translates that formerly invisible soft cultural damage, which the hero leader just dismissed as, oh, people are just complaining or that's just sentiment, into hard, objective, measurable, standardized data.
Data you can put in a report, data you can track over time.
Right. When the toxic talent gets rated by their direct peers, by people who depend on them, maybe even by their direct reports, and those results consistently show massive negative friction, massive negative impact, the system provides the irrefutable data. The evaluation stops being one manager's opinion and becomes standardized evidence reflecting quantifiable systemic harm.
And this allows the leader to finally calculate that critical metric you mentioned earlier, net performance.
Exactly. You can finally get a handle on net performance, which is basically their individual results minus the calculated or estimated cost they impose on the productivity, morale, engagement, and even the attrition rate of everyone around them.
So when the elite leader looks at this comprehensive data, and it clearly shows the toxic star is actively costing the company, say, $200,000 in lost team productivity, project delays, and replacing people who quit because of them, while only generating $150,000 in direct personal results.
The net performance is negative $50,000. And at that point, the decision to act potentially to sever ties, it's no longer subjective, it's not emotional, it's not driven by fear or frustration. It becomes mathematically sound and fiscally responsible. It's irrefutable. So the elite leader has been incredibly diligent, right? They've executed these 4 competencies systematically. They defined the non-negotiable rules clearly. They forced collaboration to expose the behavior. They provided direct, specific SBI feedback. They installed objective metrics to measure the real impact.
They've given the toxic talent a genuine, clear, documented chance to change, offered support, set unambiguous expectations.
Absolutely, an honest chance.
Yeah.
But the elite leader also understands deep down that they cannot wait forever. They can't keep investing resources indefinitely hoping for a sustained behavioral turnaround that might never come. A red line, absolutely must be drawn somewhere.
Okay, but let me throw in what feels like the single biggest real-world complication leaders bring up constantly. What if this toxic star is like the only person in the entire company who truly understands a critical legacy system or holds the key client relationship? What if they are genuinely indispensable from a purely operational standpoint, maybe because the previous hero leader was just lazy about cross-training or documentation?
Yeah.
How does the elite leader manage that terrifying operational risk, the what happens Monday morning if they're gone fear, while still taking the brave step to remove the toxicity? That's not just a culture problem at that point. It feels like a potential business continuity crisis.
That is a fundamental, extremely common, and very real challenge. And facing that challenge, that reveals a crucial, maybe the ultimate test of elite leadership. It forces the question, do you prioritize managing around a single point of failure represented by one individual, or do you prioritize building long-term systemic resilience?
So the elite leader sees the knowledge hoarding itself as part of the problem?
Exactly. The elite leader recognizes that knowledge hoarding or being the sole holder of a key relationship isn't just a fact, it's often a tactic. It's a behavior the star uses, consciously or subconsciously, to increase their leverage, to make themselves untouchable, to justify their toxicity.
So what do? Before they pull the trigger, so to speak.
Before that final conversation, if removal seems likely, the elite leader must proactively and rapidly initiate a mandatory structured knowledge transfer process or intensive documentation effort. Often, they'll even tie the star's final bonus, severance payout, or letter of recommendation directly to the successful, verified completion of that knowledge transfer.
Ah, so you turn the impending departure itself into a catalyst for fixing the underlying systemic vulnerability. You de-risk the exit before it happens.
Precisely. You do not allow the organization to be held hostage indefinitely by one person's hoarded knowledge or critical function. You build the backup systems, you identify and train redundancy, you document everything ruthlessly, you might bring in consultants short-term, you mitigate the risk.
Okay, so the knowledge risk is managed. What's the final trigger?
The ultimate test remains unchanged. If, after all these structured, objective interventions, clear rules, forced collaboration, SBI feedback, objective metrics, and mitigating the operational risks, if the toxic behavior still does not change sustainably.
Meaning the 360 scores stay low, the team friction is still palpable, the negative net performance persists.
Then the elite leader acts decisively. They understand that further procrastination, hoping for a miracle, is actually a dereliction of their core duty to the organization's health.
This involves that final, really stark calculation of protection you mentioned earlier. You have to decide who you're ultimately responsible to.
The elite leader recognizes without question that their primary, their most strategic, their most important responsibility is to the collective health, to the well-being and productivity of the entire organization, and especially to the high-integrity people who uphold the culture and sustain its performance day in, day out.
So protecting 10 good people.
Protecting 10 good, ethical, collaborating employees is unequivocally, mathematically, and strategically far more important than retaining one toxic genius, no matter how high that genius's individual numbers might seem in isolation.
And it really needs to be stressed. Making that tough call, letting the star go, it's not a failure of leadership because you couldn't fix them.
Absolutely not. It should be seen as the ultimate proof of leadership conviction. It's often the most courageous and the most necessary act a leader performs.
The source material frames it how?
It frames the decision to deselect that individual not as failure, but as the highest act of leadership required to protect the long-term viability, the health, the morale, and the future potential of the entire team. It's like removing a spreading infection to save the patient.
And the impact on the rest of the team must be immediate.
Instantaneous and powerful. By removing the source of the toxicity, the elite leader creates this immediate, strong validation loop for everyone else who remains. The message is clear. This organization actually does value my integrity, my collaboration, my well-being. That restoration of psychological safety often leads to an immediate surge in discretionary effort, loyalty, and productivity from the rest of the staff. They can finally breathe again. #tag outro.
So this deep dive, it's really revealed that this whole dilemma, the toxic genius, it's way more than just an HR issue or a management technique problem. It's fundamentally a test of character for the leader involved.
It forces you to make a very clear choice about which future you are actively building, actively investing in every single day through your actions or your inaction.
The contrast is pretty stark by the end. The hero leader ends up sacrificing the long-term health, the culture, sustainability, talent retention, all for the perceived safety of those short-term isolated results.
Right. They build this inherently unstable model. It relies on individual heroics, often their own, and constant firefighting, constant crisis management. It's exhausting and ultimately doomed.
But the elite leader, armed with that conviction and those 4 surgical competencies we discussed, they build something sustainable. Sustainable high performance.
Because they ensure that the best talents, when measured by that crucial net performance metric, are also the best people in terms of behavior and impact.
It creates an environment where everyone, theoretically, can thrive.
Yeah.
Where talent becomes this tide that lifts all the boats, not just the one flashy speedboat tearing around causing waves.
And I think the core truth we really dug out today is this. Measuring net performance, that idea of results minus the cost of the friction they cause, it fundamentally transforms how we should even define who our best employee really is.
That's a big shift.
It is. Because it means the true measure of elite leadership isn't really about how well you can tolerate difficult, exceptional individuals. It's more about how quickly and systematically you identify and then eliminate the organizational friction caused by damaging behavior. It's about optimizing the system, not just worshiping the individual star.
Which leaves us with that final, really challenging question from the source material. And we want to direct this straight to you, the listener, as you think about your own teams, your own workplaces, maybe your own leadership style.
And you, who are you protecting? Your star or your team?
Something to really reflect on. We'd encourage you maybe this week, just analyze your own environment through this lens. Use the elite leader's perspective. What seemingly minor behaviors are you maybe currently tolerating? Or perhaps even rationalizing away, using one of those hero leader justifications. Behaviors that might be silently, slowly eroding the immune system, the trust, and the untapped potential of your most valuable asset, your collaborating, high-integrity team members.